Hi everyone, it's Dexter from A2K, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, What's New in Inventor 2022. Applications engineer John Pitcher will be presenting for us today. So before we start, we'll just go through about A2K. We're all about fostering innovation through consulting and training. A2K Technologies plays a vital role in helping infrastructure, building, mining, construction, architecture, and manufacturing industries reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as education and consulting. We work with visionaries to shape the future of design and in turn enable them through innovation to minimize risks, improve productivities and achieve excellence. A2K Technologies is considered the business partner of choice and trusted advisor by vendors and clients. We partner with major software and hardware vendors to meet their clients' technology needs. We strive to exceed client expectations by pinpointing the challenges and delivering solutions through experience and innovation. We work with clients and companies of any size nationally and abroad. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Dexter. Just an obligatory sound check there, mate. You can hear me okay?
Yep, all perfect.
Very good. Thanks for that, and welcome along, everyone. My name's John Pitcher, and it's great to be presenting for you today around this interesting subject of some of the new key elements and items of the 2022 Inventor release. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you along. Just a few things about me. I am presently working as an A2K Technologies engineer. So my official role is the mechanical technical person for the A2K team. My background is in manufacturing, and I've been involved in various aspects of mechanical engineering over the years. I started my career as a fitter and machinist and spent time in numerous aspects of engineering, hydraulics and pneumatics, did quite a bit of CNC programming, machine tool manufacture, and a number of other elements as well. But for the past 14 years or so, I've been directly connected with the Autodesk mechanical product line. So I train Inventor, AutoCAD, Fusion, and a number of other aspects of the Autodesk mechanical products. And just more recently, I've been more involved in the additive manufacturing process. So a little bit involved with 3D printing and some elements of working in that particular space. Just a bit of an outline on what we hope to do this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're located. So yeah, the plan is over the next 30 or 40 minutes to unfold for you some of the aspects of Inventor 2022 release. As we mentioned in our overview webinars previously, Inventor includes a fantastic array of functionalities aimed at designers and engineers, which give us the edge to get our concepts and designs and products into a suitable state for market release. So the 2022 version of Inventor has seen a couple of really nice features added. One major new feature is the model state functionality, and I'll go through that in a little bit more detail a little later on. But there's a number of other new features as well added in the interoperability functionality. So we've got some improvements to the Inventor and Revit link, which you might find beneficial, and also a new link to Fusion, which allows us to save directly out of Inventor into your Fusion 360 account and share a file. Maybe if you're using Fusion for some CNC machining or part of the CAM tools, or you want to do a little render in the Fusion engine, we can do that quite quickly. So let's jump straight into the presentation. The Inventor development team have been working tirelessly to create a bunch of professional grade enhancements that help automate and connect our workflows. As always, these improvements and enhancements are driven by you through the feedback community and also through their ideas site, which some of you may be familiar with. So if you log into your Autodesk account, you're able to put suggestions up for future releases. If you'd like to know more about that, feel free to get in touch with us and we can give you the link to some of those other sites. And there's numerous other ways that Autodesk communicate with you, the end user of their product. So this year, Autodesk have focused on new ways of managing various parts and assemblies. And effectively, as I said, this is the model states functionality. As I mentioned, they've also worked on some of the interoperability improvements between Inventor, Revit and Fusion. and some general productivity and performance updates. And again, these are always a high priority item, being able to open assemblies faster or generate drawings faster, obviously better managing resources to help our systems create products in a shorter space of time. So we'll be going through some of those different tools. So I've sort of broken today up into three sections, I suppose, although there is 6 limited here, but the first 2 are very connected in the sense that we've got this model states functionality, both in part environment and assembly environment. So these are a little bit like what we might have known before as level of detail. They've been changed now and are now referred to as model states, and there's some new improved functionality with that, which we'll go through shortly. As I mentioned, we've got some interoperability improvements in the Collaborate to the BIM side of the Autodesk products. So again, improved tools to simplify and save native Revit project files in Inventor, and Fusion to Inventor link, which I mentioned earlier. And also we'll wrap up later on talking about some of the enhancements and productivity improvements that hopefully will get your modelling and drawing generation processes done quite a lot more quickly. So we'll talk about that towards the end of our demonstration. So firstly, I'd like to drill down a little into the model states functionality. Basically, it's a powerful new workflow that enables us to create multiple representations of a part or assembly within a single document to provide a convenient way to engineer or manage and manufacture your designs. So we can have different dimensions, parameters, different components or properties or simplification functions. But because these all exist in the one file, there's no need to worry about breaking associations between files. And I'm sure those of you that have been working with any 3D modeling package, this is a very important consideration, is that association link between multiple files. So specifically within the part environment, model states can be used for instance, machining operations, where maybe a part is cast out of cast iron. Basically, then we can set up different model states to represent the machining processes that might be done on that part. So we could set up a cast version of our part, a semi-finished version of the part, a finished version of the part, and then maybe a painted version of the part. So we can set those up in the model states environment within the part scenario. Also, I guess we could use this for sheet metal. So if you're bending some bracketry or something in a sheet metal type situation, we could use model states to show our sheet metal components in various states of being bent to become the final part. So for various of those processes. I guess a bit, one other area that this could be used is in weldments. So a bit like what we would normally do with our preparations, our weld beads and our machining operations, we can break them down into different model states to show how our welded componentry comes together. So I guess there's a lot of benefits in doing this. Also, like I said, we can do this in assemblies, and I'll go through some of that functionality in a moment. So what I'd just like to do is talk a little bit about this functionality and give you a bit of a run through here on how this function works. Basically, model states can be used in parts to capture our design intent. We can show flexible components, family of parts, or simplified versions of our design without creating additional files on our disk. So each model state has its own iProperties, allowing you to create families or variations of parts with unique metadata, such as material, stock numbers, etc., etc. Model states in part files can be used to capture the design of your part as it processes, like we said before, or progresses rather, through the manufacturing process. In the example you can see here, we've got a cast part initially, then we've got a machine version of the part, both of which have been modelled within the same part file. And you can see the node in the browser there of model states, and effectively that comes through that particular process. So before programming the part for machining, we can create these model states and suppress those features which aren't required for CNC programming. So we could use those different model states to go through our machining functionality. Often you'll need a simplified version of a design for simulation. So removing certain properties or features from our model can also be done. So we can use a simplified representation now within a part file. And this is ideal when we're creating design intent and putting derived files together. Where in the past we've used automation tools to help simplify designs retrospectively. Model states allow us to do that and have a simplified representation built in from the start. So it's a really beneficial tool, I think you'll find. So dimensional changes can be made to the design that will automatically update all of the relevant model states, and all the design intent is within that one file. Model states are supported by the Inventor API and iLogic interfaces to help automate your design workflow. So we can see some great new functionalities in that particular space. So there's also, when we talk about within assemblies, we can have instance properties for particular componentry. And basically what this allows us to do is assign properties to individual components or instances. Assigned properties are stored in the parent assembly. So not like traditional iProperties, instance properties don't affect the reference component files. Instance properties are assigned to an individual component instance only and can override custom iProperties. Instance properties are available in annotations such as balloons, leader notes, and also within parts list. Now, I'm sure for those of you that are using level of detail type functionality presently would like to know how this functions in the 2022 release. And this is a very important note. So if you're using level of detail at this point, these are by default migrated to the new model state node that you'll find in the browser. So just again, you won't lose your previous level of details from previous assemblies. So if you've got those set up already in your 2021 or previous versions assemblies, they are automatically migrated over to model states in the 2022 release. So if we open a legacy assembly containing level of details, those defaults that you're probably familiar with, if you're using level of details, you might remember the all components suppressed, all parts suppressed, and all content center suppressed. Those three have been removed, but effectively we have the master level of details, and any user-defined level of details, including substitutes, are retained and converted to model states. Okay, so they will be converted over in your new component, your new assemblies. So with regard to assembly model states, here's a little example of how those model states work. Again, working with the model states, we can set up, again, to capture design intent and show multiple manufacturing stages within an assembly if we would like to, or a simplified version of our design inside that one assembly file. In this example, we can see a new model state being created. The new model state records the suppression state of components and remembers model state settings of subcomponents. So multiple families or variations of a design can be quickly connected and created using a spreadsheet, as we might have done previously. And also each model state captures unique part properties and quantities to track the number of items required in your bill of materials or parts list. So in addition, we've got this, as I mentioned earlier, instance properties, and these can be allocated to individual components, allowing each instance of a component to be tagged with information that's unique to that component. Instance properties could also be used to identify the location or order of fit for your assembly, or to add a unique service number to each component. And often we need a simplified version of our design for simulation. So maybe for coordinating or simply to protect our intellectual property. So in the past, we've used automation tools to help simplify designs retrospectively. Model states allow a new possibility of building components that have simplified representations built in from the very start. So simplified representations can be automatically linked to an assembly model or model state, and then provide quick and easy methodologies for simplifying an entire design. The Inventor model states are fully supported by the Inventor API and iLogic, and will help us automate our design workflow. So simplified models can also be used to create drawings of large-scale assemblies where small details may not be necessarily required. So lots of good functionality on this particular aspect of the Inventor model states functionality. There's a new simplify command. So rather than using shrink wrap, basically shrink wrap and shrink wrap substitute commands have been migrated across to what we call the simplify command. And again, these work very similarly, and the properties dialog box has been included here, as you've probably seen if you've been using Inventor 2021 or 2020. We've got a properties dialog now to control the way the simplify scenario works. And effectively, the purpose of this is to make collaboration and downstream use much easier, and again, being created at the start of the process rather than in a retrospective state. But yeah, so some very good functionality with regard to simplification. A couple of quick slides here before we are going to move over to a bit of a live demo shortly, guys. So we will go and have a quick look at some of the tools in Inventor, and I'll hopefully be able to explain a number of those and clarify some of your questions there. So we've got the option to export to RVT, which incorporates the new simplify command to produce a Revit model having only the components and features needed for the Revit design. So a Revit exports browser folder is placed in the Inventor model. It's populated with a node for the exported model. As long as the model is maintained in the specified path, you can edit, preview, open in Revit or an associated application to update the Revit model. So again, some really good collaboration tools here for working between Revit and Inventor. Obviously, this functionality has been there for a couple of releases now, but certainly improved with, again, making use of the simplify command within Inventor. With regard to Fusion linkage, and for those of you that haven't heard of Fusion 360, certainly worth a look, guys, if you haven't played with it or had a bit of a look. If you've got the product design manufacturing collection, you've got a version of Fusion available to you. So please jump in and have a look at that. It's a great little product. We do run training on Fusion quite frequently here at A2K. So feel free to have a look at our website to pick up the upcoming courses on the Fusion space. Obviously, Fusion is a much more cloud-enabled tool. So there's a lot more data sharing via the cloud. So it sort of incorporates Dropbox type systems, if you like, to store your data in the cloud so you've got access to it anywhere you would like. But with Inventor, we've got a clearer work sharing type situation where we can share data with Fusion 360 with a simple button to send to Fusion. And I'll show you this in a moment in our live demo. So basically that connects us automatically to our Fusion team account, and we can upload an Inventor part file there, which then is available for us. Like I said before, maybe we want to do some CAM functionality, or perhaps if you like the rendering engine within Fusion, you might like to do a render using the Fusion Cloud Renderer, for instance. So a lot of incorporated tools there to allow us to send a file to Fusion, which will in turn log us into that particular element. So again, if you're using Fusion for other parts of your business, having these two scenarios linked, I think you'll find quite beneficial. Another little improvement if you're using geometric dimensioning and tolerancing. Obviously, again, this functionality has been in the Inventor software for a couple of releases now, but so doing model annotations, as they're called, you might have touched on this in the past, and certainly this functionality is improving. A couple of the little improvements here, we've now got support for QAF 3.0 in this release, and also we've got the option to export out a quality information framework file which contains PMI data. So very beneficial that we can link now. So we can export neutral 3D CAD files with that PMI data into JT format. So if you're using JT, certainly you can do that via the task scheduler now directly from your Inventor 3D model. So again, seeing quite a lot of benefit with regard to improvements to this functionality as more and more people take up that particular functionality. So one other little aspect that I'd like to talk about here is improvements. Yeah, like I mentioned, the functionality that we've got in incorporating a Revit model. So this little clip that I've got running at the present just shows us the simplify tools that we've got inside a Inventor model where we can simplify and show certain elements. So you can see there we've linked a Revit model into Inventor via the AnyCAD functionality, which some of you are possibly familiar with. We're going to use that as a reference while designing. Now our design's complete, we'd like to share our design with a Revit user for coordination. So before saving our Inventor assembly as a Revit model, we would like to remove certain manufacturing detail from our design, which is unnecessary for the coordination on our BIM project. And so we've got this newly laid out simplification dialog that helps us automatically remove components from our design by size. Feature recognition is used to remove individual features which aren't required in the Revit model. And features can be removed completely or using a range to automatically select only those features that meet your criteria. Parts and features that are required for coordination can be preserved to ensure that they are not unintentionally removed by setting the output file to a Revit project or a .rvt file. Additionally, there's some settings that are revealed, allowing us to structure our output. Each top-level component option allows us to export a model in which each top-level Inventor assembly can be scheduled and tagged inside Revit. To completely strip our manufacturing models of all details, envelopes can be automatically added, which replace components or sub-assemblies with a bounding box. So the new Simplify dialog also includes presets, which help to further automate your simplification process by saving standard settings so that you can use them again and again when you need to export to Revit. When we're happy with that, our simplified model shows the appropriate detail. We can click OK and export that to a Revit project. A Revit design is being created using the Revit model as a reference. This ensures that the coordinate system of the two models match. The exported Inventor model can be linked into a Revit project for coordination and review. So each top-level component has been exported as an item and can be scheduled and tagged inside Revit, just like any other Revit file. So yes, some quite clever improvements in that process, again, mainly due to the inclusion of that Simplify tool inside of Inventor. So a couple of little things about productivity and performance over the years. There's been, obviously Autodesk are always trying to improve the speed at which Inventor processes and opens assemblies and drawings particularly. But again, this year we've seen improvements to that. So a number of improvements to the speed in which Inventor is able to open large assemblies and certainly reference drawings with regard to how a number of those aspects of the Inventor software function. This year also, there's been a lot of work done in the graphics technology and utilising your GPU more extensively to to give us better results across the board and make our product work more proficiently. So if you enjoy working with parts while working in the assembly, you'll find several performance improvements there while editing sketches and visibility improvements. So all in all, Autodesk are trying to get the GPU to work in a better way by utilising visual styles, so we can display wireframes and silhouette edges and things like that. When we're opening and closing documents, should be faster than we've ever had before. Obviously now with more and more system resources available, our software is forced to utilise that in a more progressive fashion. Another little improvement or change to the software is the fillet dialog is no longer a fillet dialog. It's been switched over to the properties dialog. We've seen these change over the last couple of releases. So in the part environment, the fillet command has been moved to a property panel. So the panels can be docked, as you know, anywhere around your screen and allow a more straightforward layout with less features hidden away in drop-down menus and things like that. Again, the selection tools have been put into a little tool palette, which again is dockable independent of the fillet palette. I will show you this in a moment in our live demo. So the fillet command itself has been split into basically 3 types of fillets. We've got standard edge fillets, face fillets, and full round fillets. Each type of fillet is now easy to identify with its own icon in the model browser. So with regard to legacy files, again, if you're opening a previous version of an Inventor file, basically the fillet features will not change until you edit the fillet feature. Thus, the fillet browser nodes appear as they have in the past until the fillet is edited. So if you make an edit to a current fillet, it will be migrated across in the browser at that point. A couple of new items as well in the assembly environment, and this is quite a nice little feature that I think you'll enjoy, is the option to show under constraint components by way of a little graphic, a little icon next to your part icon in your browser. And I'll go through this again. There's an option to show the constrained state of a particular part or subassembly within your main level assembly. So yeah, we'll go through that in a moment. I'll explain the little icon that you can see there in the assembly browser. Okay, with regard to the dark theme, this was introduced as a technical preview in 2021, and many people tried that out. The big problem was that when you switched over to the iLogic browser, for instance, it went back to the white theme, which was or the light coloured background. So this has been improved, and certainly Autodesk are still working on some of the tools in this regard as well. So the dark theme is being applied to more and more tools as we work through. And again, just a reminder, if you haven't used that in the past, you'll find that under the tools menu under application options and inside the colors tab. But again, I will give you a quick rundown on that in our demonstration shortly. One other minor change in the drawing environment is that we can now use lighting styles from the drawing mode in our, from our part mode in our drawing mode. So you'll notice that we can apply a lighting or a color scheme or something specific from the drawing environment. I know a lot of people found this a little bit annoying previously, was that we couldn't apply lighting to make our isometric view of our shaded models improved, and there was some challenges with that. So Autodesk have now answered that with a new little tool, and I'll go through this again in our demonstration in a moment. But effectively, we've got an option now to use a lighting style from the part environment inside a drawing view on our drawing sheet. So another nice little enhancement there. With regard to installations, and I'm sure some of you are tasked with applying deployments within your company, Autodesk have been changing this over time, but as time goes on, more and more products are allowing us to deploy directly from Autodesk account. So we can actually set up the deployment image via your Autodesk account. I won't go into this one in huge detail, but effectively you can also do a multi-product deployment from the Autodesk account. And yeah, a little different to what we've done previously by creating our own deployment image, but yeah, certainly Autodesk have allowed us to do that now directly. And also we can configure that deployment image via the Autodesk account as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just jump in and give you a quick look at some of these new tools. I've got Inventor 2022 sitting here, and first up I'd just like to highlight 2 or 3 things that you may not be aware of under the standard Getting Started tab. For those of you that have used Inventor before, you may have come across these already, so we won't spend a huge amount of time here, but obviously under Getting Started, one little pointer that I find quite helpful is this Highlight New feature option. And in here you can go and set to highlight the items within the ribbon panel with this little orange dot. So it's telling me whereabouts the new functionalities are. And if you're switching over from 2019 Inventor, it will show you the updated aspects from that release up to the 2022 version of Inventor. So yeah, Highlight New under the Getting Started panel here, under the Getting Started tab. We've got, yeah, so it's worth having that switched on. As you'll notice, when we go into another particular environment, you'll be highlighting with all of these little dots up here to show us the various new features. As I mentioned, under the Tools Application Options tab, we've got, jump on my other screen. So yeah, our Application Options tab contains a number of different tools, but as I mentioned before, the main one that I wanted to talk about was the dark theme. You've possibly seen this already if you're using Inventor 2021, but if you're coming from Inventor 2020 or an older version, the new dark theme, which I've got running at the present, obviously if we go for the light theme, yeah, it's a little bit harder on your eyes. It's a much whiter type scenario, and you'll notice that your Inventor menus all turn back to a very light ribbon bar, a light background, etc., etc. So you will notice, yeah, quite a change there. Sorry about the hang up here. My Inventor seems to want to take a second to do that, possibly interfering with my Zoom or something else. So yeah, that's the light theme. But as you can see, if we switch over to the dark theme, yeah, maybe it's a bit kinder on your eyes moving forward, especially if you're working on Inventor for 6 or 8 hours a day. Obviously, you'll notice a marked improvement in the way that works. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the dialogues that weren't included in the 2021 dark theme have now been switched over to that. So anyway, that's a matter of personal preference, not super important. But just 1 or 2 little things that I did want to mention here. As I mentioned with the fillet dialog, when we start the fillet tool now, we're presented with a properties panel. Okay. So the fillet dialog has looks slightly different, as you can see here. We've got yeah, basically the various functionality here where we can change the different fillet type. I've also, and again, I think my Zoom has really upset my Inventor, but generally you would also have a little palette on the side here, which refers to the constant fillet, the full round, or the face fillet. So you would have another little menu down here, which we can then park or dock at any particular point around your screen. So you might have that, that available at all times. So yeah, that's one of the more notable changes, I guess, in the part environment. Most of the other tools, I think you'll find are very similar. But again, our little orange dot is highlighting the different tools that are now available to us. So we can always go and explore these little orange dots to tell us where the new features are displayed inside the, incidentally, if If that does annoy you, obviously we can go back to our Getting Started tab and turn that off, so you don't see those little orange dots any longer to see where they're, if that gets on your nerves, which it may well do. Okay, so just one or two other things. As you can see in my browser over here, this is the new model states functionality. So as I mentioned before, this is not unlike our tools that we used to have in the assembly environment, but like I said, these are now applied in the part environment. To create a new one, it's just a matter of right-clicking on model states and creating a new model state. Again, we can rename these as you would with any of your Inventor nodes, and we can suppress items, we can go in and change parameters, we can go and do a range of different things with regard to how our model is going to behave there in that particular environment. So that's the new model states node, like I said, and as per the little demonstration we saw in the PowerPoint presentation earlier, yeah, model states, we can obviously suppress certain things. Maybe we could suppress the machine features from our cast vice jaw here that you might find beneficial. So if we jump over to an assembly now, again, you'll notice that if you go to your browser, we've still got representations folder here, but as you can see, if you expand this out, you now only have view and position. Remember previously we used to have another one here called level of detail. So that's been replaced by model states up here, and we can use model states a bit like we would level of details, but then obviously we've got individual properties for those model states as well. So I think you'll find that quite beneficial, guys. There's some, yeah, some very good functionality allowing us to do that. And as I mentioned previously with our, when we're going through this, if you've got a level of detail that's included in a 2019 or 2020 assembly or a 2021 assembly, when you open that assembly in Inventor 2022, it will automatically create model states for each of the level of details that you had available in those previous versions. Okay. And of course, this populates forward, giving us a much greater benefit. Obviously, with level of details, when we created a parts list, the level of detail was ignored, if you remember. So we had to use the master representation to create our parts list at any rate. Where now we can use the model state to dictate that and have separate instance properties, as we said before, for each of those particular elements. Okay, so model states, I think you'll find quite beneficial. Look, go and have a play with this, guys. I think you'll find some of those tools to be very handy. One of the other little items, again, I mentioned about being able to show your constrained state of your parts. Up on the little 3 horizontal lines, or as our American friends call it, the little burger icon up here. If you click on this icon, you'll notice in here you get display preferences. And under here, we've got an option to show the constrained state. So watch carefully in my browser here, you'll notice we've got icons for each of our parts and then the part name. If I tick this option, you'll notice now I get a little icon in brackets to show the constrained state of each of the parts. So at a very brief glance, obviously we can go here and just have a look. The only part that is actually fully constrained in this particular assembly is the base vice, but all of the other options are obviously still have certain degrees of freedom. As you can see here, if we were to activate another positional representation there, obviously we can set up any of those. And for those of you that might have done this previously, we can set up section views as well, as per the view representations inside of your Inventor browser. Okay, so yeah, very valuable little tool. I quite like this little icon here, which is just showing me the constrained state of each component just at a glance. So you might want to, again, just come up here to the little horizontal lines, click on this. Under Display Preferences, yeah, we can show constrained state to allow us to see those items there. Okay, one other little aspect that we'll just quickly talk about is with the drawing side of things. And as I mentioned, we can now set up drawings to use lighting styles from our part file. So how do we use this one? Well, I've got a shaded view here. Basically with this shaded view, if I edit this view, you'll notice in here we've got design views here, which has always been there, but here's where I can pick up my different view representations. But notice this little settings button on the right here. So if you've got if you use the master design view, you'll notice the settings button is grayed out, okay? But if you've set up a different view with a different lighting style or something like that, we can now apply the camera view to our drawing sheet. So you might find that a beneficial little tool if you want different lighting or maybe a different sort of a shadowing effect or something like that to allow you to show a different view. And also we've got an option here to include our 3D annotations. So if you've done some GD&T within your model, these would be available if we select this little tick box here. Okay, so we can apply different lighting now to a particular view within our drawing sheet. So quite a handy little enhancement, and hopefully you'll find those options beneficial. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover there with regard to the three different elements. Like I said, probably the biggest and most beneficial change for this release is that new model states functionality. So yeah, quite a handy little tool. All right, so just to wrap up, I've got some links here where you can go and find some more information about any of these options. I did mention briefly earlier about the Autodesk Idea Station, Autodesk Ideas, where you can go and make suggestions. So the third item down in that list. I can probably share these with everybody later on in the chat if you'd like these particular links. But yeah, quite a number of beneficial links there that you might want to have a further look at or investigation before switching over to the 2022 version of Inventor. So that more or less wraps up what I had to present today. So look, thanks very much for joining us. I will stay online for a couple of minutes to try and to answer any questions that you might have. So if you'd like to either pop questions in the chat window, I'll try and answer those. But also just one other point, we obviously run numerous webinars on various aspects of the Autodesk tools. So what I'd just like to share with you one other link if you'd like to have a look at the that link you can see on your screen presently. We do run webinars on Revit and a bunch of other objects as well, a bunch of other aspects of the Inventor software or Fusion software or any of the Autodesk tools. So if you're keen to have a look at our upcoming webinars, please have a look at that link. So thanks again for joining us today. It's been great to have you along, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join with us. And like I said, we'll certainly talk through some of those questions. There's a couple of questions that have come up here, so I'll answer those. View representations aren't migrated to model states, Alex. Just to answer your question there, view representations stay the same as they were. So if you had a view representation in Inventor 2019, 20 or 21 model, the view representations stay as view representations. They aren't set up by default. Yes, a recording will be placed on our website, and I think you'll all receive a link to that. So if you've joined our webinar and yes, we will be doing, this has been recorded, and we'll certainly share that link with everybody that's attended, I believe. So with regard to linking model states to a detail in Revit, that's a very good question. I believe they can be linked to detail levels in Revit, yes. As to whether they're linked via the fine, medium and coarse, I believe, yes, we can. So yes, I think that is an option. Thanks, Tim, for your question there on that. So yeah, I believe that that is the case. So, okay, just to run through a couple of these. You're welcome, guys. Thanks for joining in today. For all those people that have put a comment there, but yeah, thanks for joining us. Model states, does it replace iParts? Thanks, Rajiv. Very good question. In one sense, it will, but I guess it adds a slightly different level of intelligence to the iPart. So yes, I think in time we will see the model states take over from where we've used iParts previously. Very similar functionality, yes, in that sense. So, Rajesh, your question there with regard to view reps, will they be moved in the future? Good question. I don't know that we'll see a big change to view reps. Hard to say. Autodesk are very tight-lipped on where this is going future, but the concept there with regard to view reps in future, good question. I think we will see more things moving this way, but whether it changes completely to incorporate in model states is a question probably that'll have to go off to Autodesk. So so yeah, look, I wouldn't like to answer that one definitively as a yes or a no at this point, because like I said, Autodesk are fairly tight-lipped on that. So I think that's it for questions. So thank you very much again for joining us, everyone. It's been great to have you along. It's yeah, nice to see you all online, and please stay safe and well in the future, and we'll look forward to chatting further in the future. Thanks for your time again today.